Now, here's your Pentagon Channel report.
A World War II F-4U-1 Corsair fighter plane was raised from Lake Michigan Monday at the Larson Marine in Waukegan, Illinois. Salvage crews working for the United States Navy helped to bring a very rare early model of the Corsair, commonly called the birdcage Corsair, from the lake. The plane had rested at the bottom of the lake for nearly 70 years after crashing during a training exercise.
A historic warplane is pulled from the waters of Lake Michigan. Today, the Navy recovered a World War II F-6F-3 Hellcat fighter plane near Waukegan. As ABC7's Phil Schwartz tells us, this is the latest in a series of historic recoveries from the lake.
It's been at the bottom of Lake Michigan for about 60 years, but today a piece of American history was brought to the surface. It's a Dauntless dive bomber that was lost during training exercises over the lake during World War II. Now, pilots of those planes played a critical role in helping American forces win the Battle of Midway.
The crew gently brought up the aircraft in stages until it rose from 250 feet to 40 feet.
I'm Chris Habermill in Chopper 2 HD on a momentous occasion for history buffs and World War II aircraft lovers alike. This is a 1940s vintage World War II SBD Dauntless dive bomber.
The plane crashed into the lake during qualification training back in the 1940s, and it's since been sitting in about 315 feet of water, rusting and serving as home to a colony of zebra mussels. I'm Marine Sergeant Ashley Bryant, and that's your Pentagon Channel report.
Самолет времен Второй мировой войны подняли сегодня американские спасатели со дна одного из великих озер в штате Мичиган. Истребитель редкой серии «Корсар» пролежал под водой более 70 лет. Акцию вызволения военной техники провел Музей авиации во Флориде.
The Warbird section here at AirVenture is a big draw for visitors every year, and the plane drawing the most attention might be what's left of this Wildcat.
I had all these other airplanes to look at, and I saw this, and it's the first one I came over to see.
It's thrilling, exciting. I guess the part that most exciting is that my grandson sat in the plane when they pulled it out of the lake this morning, and he was the first person to sit in it since I vacated it 65 years ago.
It's not just a matter of going out and snatching it off the bottom of the lake and bringing it ashore and sticking it in a restoration department. You have to do a National Environmental Policy Act survey. You have to get the Corps of Engineers involved. You have to get the State Historic Preservation Office involved. You have to get the Fish and Wildlife Commission involved. You have to get the water quality people involved. You have to get the radiation control people involved. It takes about a year to do the paperwork on this. One of the advantages of having an Army Ranger involved in this project is he won't take no for an answer.
It's the only F4U-1 there is in the world. And it's right here.
Slowly, it rose from the cold, murky water of Lake Michigan. Encrusted with zebra mussel and seaweed, it lifted into the air again, as it did 67 years ago.
But you don't just pull a plane out of the water without first receiving government approval, and that includes the Illinois Historic Preservation Agency. IHPA's preference has always been that as historical artifacts, the planes should be left where they are.
States of America, airplanes do not belong on the bottom of lakes.
Lyssenko is steamed by what he calls horrid bureaucracy. The language from the interstate agreement triggers the need for an environmental study, even though its questions, Lyssenko contends, have been asked and answered with Corps of Engineers permits over the past 25 years.
The American taxpayer paid a bunch of money for a redundant study to be done by the Navy that I know full well came up with there's no adverse impacts.
We have to weigh the benefits of bringing these to the surface with the potential damage that may occur during the process of bringing them to the surface.
Part of the mission of the Naval History and Heritage Command, which is over this operation, is to make Navy history come alive for the public. We're making it come alive.
A piece of Pearl Harbor history was lifted from the ocean thousands of miles away in Lake Michigan. A World War II bomber that flew in Hawaii in the 1940s was recovered in Illinois today. It's been underwater for more than 60 years, ever since its belly landed in 1944 when its carburetor iced up during training. The recovery was sponsored by our Pacific Aviation Museum, so a Hawaiian ceremony marked the event. It will be restored and returned home.
Lyssenko and some others believe this is more about red tape than balancing act. The recovery efforts he's led are all privately financed by donors, and they are not fond of new rules when time and the elements are eating away at sunken treasures.
It's a pretty inspiring thing to see an airplane come out of the water after that many years. It really was. And you think you'd get used to it, but you don't. This is my second.
The back of his hat says it all. Keep them flying. But like the warplanes on display at Midway and O'Hare, also from the bottom of the lake, this Wildcat will fly again in a museum.
And after all these years, it's going to come back to life, this old bird.
Lake Michigan treats these planes well at 160 feet. It's dark and cold with little oxygen. Recovered planes often have some air in the tires and in some cases even a trickle of charge left in the battery. Barbara.
They are a piece of history.
Oh, and they're beautiful.
And it's amazing that people would go in and do that and restore them. I mean, everybody sees them at O'Hare and Midway.
Yes.
They're remarkable planes.
This is the second one he'll do, and this costs a lot of money to do. It's wonderful. It's really a labor of love.
I like how he calls them these old birds.
It is our way of showing the present and future generations what the greatest men of the greatest generation did. Of